Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be unpacking a single YouTube video, and this one, it left me feeling deeply disturbed, and honestly, kind of angry.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's from Bantou Talks, and the title is in French, J'ai dû coucher avec toute ma hiérarchie,
Okay.
which translates to, I had to sleep with my entire hierarchy. It features an anonymous interview with a young woman named Dorcas. And let me tell you, her story is going to stay with you.
You know what's so disturbing about this story is how Dorcas's experience, while incredibly personal and specific, also exposes like this dark underbelly of exploitation that exists in so many workplaces.
Yeah.
Especially in societies with these stark power imbalances.
Exactly. And before we even dive in, I think it's just crucial to acknowledge how sensitive this topic is. I mean, Dorcas chose to remain anonymous for obvious reasons.
Right.
You can just really sense the courage it took for her to even share her story.
Absolutely.
So we really want to listen with the utmost empathy and respect for her experience.
For sure. Now, the video starts with Dorcas sharing her background. You know, she spent 4 long years unemployed after graduating with a secretarial degree.
Wow.
Imagine that pressure, both from her family to contribute financially,
Right.
and from herself to finally find her footing.
Yeah.
When she lands this seemingly amazing job, you can almost feel that collective sigh of relief, hers and her family's.
Oh, totally. And I think you can see how that desperation, that need to succeed can make someone incredibly vulnerable to manipulation. And that brings us to the first red flags, which the video highlights right from the get-go.
Okay.
During her interview, her would-be manager, Carlos, he's way too familiar, commenting on her appearance rather than her skills. You know, it's subtle, but it sets the stage for what's to come.
This is textbook grooming tactics.
Ugh.
It often starts subtly. The abuser, in this case Carlos, builds a relationship with the victim, showering them with attention compliments, maybe even small gifts.
Yeah.
All to make them more vulnerable to manipulation. And Dorcas, desperate for this job, likely dismissed these red flags.
Totally. And those red flags, they kept popping up. Dorcas talks about initially enjoying the attention and the perks, dinners, leaving work early, which makes total sense.
Of course.
But it's easy to see how someone, especially feeling as vulnerable as she was, could get swept up in that.
And that's what makes these situations so insidious. It's not always a clear-cut case of aggression.
Right.
The lines, they blur, and before the victim even realizes it, the behavior escalates.
Yeah.
And escalate it does. Carlos starts touching her hair, sniffing her, and then he makes a direct proposition.
It's infuriating to hear how he just exploits her desperation and her need for this job. It's just blatant abuse of power.
Right.
Using his position to coerce her into a situation she clearly wants no part of.
Exactly. And the video doesn't shy away from showing Dorcas's inner turmoil at this point.
Right.
She's attracted to Carlos.
Okay.
Terrified of losing her job, and ultimately gives in to the pressure.
It's heartbreaking to hear her describe that moment, trying to rationalize it all, telling herself maybe it'll lead to a relationship. But she's just grasping at straws to make sense of something that feels so fundamentally wrong.
And tragically, that's when the trap snaps shut.
Ugh.
Dorcas soon discovers that sleeping with Carlos wasn't a one-time thing.
Oh, no.
It was a twisted test, an initiation into this horrifying system of exploitation.
You're telling me. Dorcas learns that her real role in the company is to provide sexual favors to visiting executives.
It's awful.
They even showed her the surveillance footage of her encounter with Carlos, making it clear she's being blackmailed into compliance.
The calculated cruelty of this whole operation is chilling.
Yeah.
They lure these women in with the promise of a legitimate job only to trap them in this web of sexual exploitation and blackmail.
And the abuse that Dorcas endures is just horrifying. She's forced to sleep with multiple men, including a truly disturbing incident in Creeby, where she's subjected to degrading acts by 3 men.
This illustrates such a crucial point. This power imbalance here isn't just about job security.
Right.
It speaks to a larger societal issue where women are often financially dependent, making them that much more susceptible to this kind of abuse.
Ugh. It's just a brutal reminder of the dehumanization that so often accompanies sexual exploitation.
It is.
It makes you wonder, at what point would someone in Dorcas's position feel empowered enough to push back? I mean, she's already emotionally invested, desperately needs this job, and now she's facing this direct pressure and blackmail.
It's terrifying to be in that situation, but just when it seems like there's no escape, Dorcas has a stroke of luck. Or perhaps we should say a twist of fate.
Okay, so here's where things take a turn. Dorcas is forced to be with a client who has some, let's just say, unconventional preferences.
Okay.
He enjoys being restrained, which unintentionally gives Dorcas the upper hand.
Oh, wow.
It's a moment of pure ingenuity. While he's tied up, Dorcas seizes the opportunity and manages to take photos and videos, gathering evidence of what's been happening. Talk about turning the tables. It's such an incredible moment of resourcefulness. She recognizes a crack in their armor.
Yes.
And she seizes it. And this is where we start to see Dorcas reclaim her power.
Exactly. She uses the evidence to blackmail the company executives, threatening to expose their whole operation if they don't let her go. And you know what? It works.
It's such a powerful act of defiance. She refuses to be a victim any longer. She takes their own weapon of manipulation and turns it against them, using it as her key to freedom.
It's a testament to her strength and resilience, her refusal to be broken by what she endured.
Yeah.
Her story sends a powerful message to anyone feeling trapped in a similar situation. You have the power to fight back.
This brings up so many questions. What does Dorcas' experience tell us about power dynamics and exploitation? What are the lasting impacts of this kind of trauma? And what can we learn from her incredible act of defiance? We'll dive into all of this and more right after this.
Dorcas's story is just a stark reminder that sexual harassment and exploitation don't just happen in Hollywood or big corporations. You know, it can happen anywhere in any industry.
Yeah.
And often the consequences are devastating.
Yeah, it's so true. And her experience, I think, also sheds light on the cultural context that often contributes to these situations.
Mm-hmm.
She talks about the pressure she felt from her family to contribute financially, which is a pressure that's common in a lot of societies.
Yeah, that's a vital point.
Yeah.
The societal expectation, especially in cultures where women bear the brunt of financial burdens, it can make them incredibly vulnerable.
Right.
You know, they might feel they have no other choice but to endure abuse to provide for themselves and their loved ones.
It's heartbreaking, really.
Yay.
Dorcas also mentions the fear of judgment, of her story not being believed if she spoke out.
Right.
And that fear is sadly very real,
Yeah.
especially in cultures where victims are often blamed or shamed.
Yeah.
It's like they're trapped in a system that's designed to silence them.
Absolutely. And that fear can be amplified by the misuse of social media.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The ease with which rumors and accusations can spread online creates a chilling effect,
Yeah.
a climate of fear and silence.
It's a double-edged sword, isn't it?
Yeah.
Social media can be an amazing tool for raising awareness and holding perpetrators accountable.
Yeah.
But it can also be weaponized to discredit victims.
Exactly.
And perpetuate a culture of shame.
Precisely. And it highlights the complexities we face in tackling these issues. Dorcas's story reminds us that these aren't just abstract concepts.
Yeah.
They have very real and painful consequences.
Right.
They shape people's lives, the choices they make, the risks they're willing to take.
It makes you realize how important it is to create safe spaces for individuals to speak out about abuse. Dorcas chose to remain anonymous. But even sharing her story under that cloak of anonymity took immense courage.
Absolutely.
How can we as a society encourage more people to come forward without fearing reprisal?
That's the million-dollar question. We need to shift the culture from one of silence and shame to one of empathy, accountability, and empowerment.
Yeah.
We need to create workplace environments where individuals feel safe and empowered to speak up against harassment.
It's a tall order for sure.
Yeah.
But Dorcas's story serves as like this powerful call to action.
For sure.
We can't just turn a blind eye to these realities. We have a responsibility to learn from her experience and work towards a world where stories like hers become the exception, not the norm.
Couldn't agree more. Now, shifting gears slightly, it's important to note that Dorcas's story isn't just about the abuse she endured.
Right.
It's also about her incredible journey of healing and resilience. She talks about finding support in a new relationship, the importance of therapy, and the slow, often painful process of reclaiming her sense of self-worth.
It's so inspiring to see how, even after experiencing such horrific trauma, she was able to find the strength to rebuild her life. Her story is a testament to the human spirit's ability to heal and move forward.
Absolutely. Trauma can leave deep scars.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to define a person's life.
Right.
Dorcas's story is living proof that healing is possible.
Yeah.
And that even in the face of unimaginable hardship, there's always hope for recovery.
You know, as we talk about her recovery, I can't help but think about that final question posed in the video. If you were in Dorcas's shoes, at what point would you have drawn the line?
It's such a powerful question. It forces us to confront our own values, our own boundaries.
Right.
And it really highlights the importance of having these conversations now
Yeah.
before we potentially find ourselves in a compromising situation.
Exactly. It's about being proactive,
Yeah.
about knowing our non-negotiables. What are the red flags we need to watch out for? Who are the people in our lives we can trust to confide in if something feels wrong?
Precisely. It's about being prepared, about having a support system in place, and knowing that we don't have to face these situations alone. Dorcas's story is a powerful reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a world where exploitation isn't tolerated.
Yeah.
It starts with recognizing those subtle signs of abuse, speaking up when we see something wrong, and supporting those who have the courage to share their stories.
It's about shifting the culture from one of silence and shame to one of empathy, accountability, and empowerment.
Exactly.
And while that may seem like a daunting task, Dorcas's story is a testament to the power of individual resilience and the potential for collective change. It's a long road for sure, but Dorcas's story, it gives me hope. It's amazing how she not only escaped that horrific situation, but then had the strength to share her story,
Yeah.
knowing the risks involved. To me, that's true courage.
It really is. It speaks to a larger point about speaking truth to power. Her act of defiance, using their system against them, it reminds us that even when we feel powerless, there are ways to resist to reclaim our agency.
She completely flipped the script on them. Instead of being controlled by that fear of exposure,
Right.
she uses it as a weapon to break free. It's almost poetic in a way.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it underscores how crucial it is to support survivors of abuse.
Yeah.
We need to create spaces where they can speak their truth
For sure.
without fear of judgment or reprisal. That might be through advocacy groups, support networks, or simply by being a listening ear,
Yeah.
a source of non-judgmental support for someone who's been through a traumatic experience.
As we're talking, I keep coming back to that question Dorcas's story asks. If you were in her shoes, at what point would you have drawn the line? It's such a tough question to grapple with.
It is.
It really makes you examine your own values and boundaries.
It does. And it highlights the importance of having those conversations now
Yeah.
before we find ourselves in a situation like that. What are our non-negotiables? What are the red flags we should watch out for?
Right.
And maybe most importantly, who are the people in our lives we can trust to confide in if something feels wrong?
So to wrap things up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from Dorcas's story? What's the most crucial lesson we can all learn from her experience?
I think it's the reminder that we all have a part to play in creating a world where exploitation is unacceptable. It starts with recognizing those subtle signs of abuse, speaking up when we see something wrong, and supporting survivors who bravely share their stories.
Yeah.
We need to shift the culture from one of silence and shame to one of empathy, accountability, and empowerment.
Such powerful words. And on that note, I want to leave our listeners with this thought. Dorcas' story shows us that even in the darkest circumstances, the human spirit can find a way to survive, to heal, and ultimately, to thrive. It's a story of hope, of resilience, and of the incredible power we have to create change. Let Dorcas' story inspire conversations, raise awareness, and spur action. Let's all do our part to build a world where stories like hers become relics of the past. A world where everyone feels safe, respected, and empowered to say no to abuse